Broadcasting from the Community Service Radio Studio at the Pop Music Academy in Sellersburg, Indiana, welcome to Dangerous Subversive Radio. Prepare to open your mind and question everything. And I mean everything. Good evening, and welcome to another episode of Dangerous Subversive Radio. I am your host, Tim Rotalick, and as always, that man behind the curtain is master engineer and producer Jackie Smith.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Jackie.
Hey.
Yeah. Well, let's just jump right into it. It was awesome. I went to Hopkinsville, Kentucky for the eclipse. Here in Louisville, it was what, 90?
I think Louisville is like 95%.
Okay, and we're what, 12 miles north of Louisville?
Yeah, so it was about 96, 95, somewhere around,
you
or
got
96, 97.
You got some pictures of it that you texted to me.
I did.
But I saw this for 2 minutes and 41 seconds.
Wow, that's impressive.
Yeah. Took us, Hopkinsville, Kentucky was the point of maximum totality. Literally the best spot on Earth for viewing this particular eclipse.
That's impressive.
172 miles away. Took us 3 hours to get there. Took us 13 hours to get home.
Oops.
Literally bumper-to-bumper traffic for 140 miles of the journey. But would I do it again? Absolutely. 2024, here I come.
Maybe you can fly.
Maybe. You know, I think the best thing to do would be to fly. Some of you might not know this. Most of you probably don't know it, but I am a pilot. I think the best way to do it would be to fly to an airport in Texas, get out of the plane, set up my lawn chairs, view the eclipse right there on the ramp, get in the plane, fly home again.
Man, you've got it.
Yeah. Okay, well, sadly to say, truly sadly to say that a lot of our younger viewers may not know who any of these people are, but I encourage you to look them up, learn about them. It'll be good for you. As a matter of fact, a lot of things in this show are not taught in schools anymore. So if you want to know anything about them, look them up. Don't take anything I say for granted. Look it up for yourself. Okay, Crosby, Stills, and Nash. Okay, and Young, but Crosby, Stills, and Nash first sang all together for the very first time, either at Joni Mitchell's house or at Cass Elliott's house. Which one? Nobody knows for sure, because David Crosby and Graham Nash distinctly remember it being at Cass Elliott's house, and Stephen Stills distinctly remembers it at Joni Mitchell's house. So why am I telling you all this stuff on a show that's supposed to be about politics? Because this is a perfect demonstration of the scientific fact that long-term memory is notoriously inaccurate. And the longer term, the more inaccurate it gets. So why am I telling you this? Because for months now, I have been presenting this show on stuff that I was sure I knew. But then I got to thinking about Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and the fact that long-term memory is inaccurate, and I decided not to do that anymore. I have decided to take myself back to school, which means not only reading the Constitution, but reading books about the Constitution. Reading the writings of the men who wrote it to get their ideas and their intents. Here's a really good book. It's called The Making of America, The Substance and Meaning of the Constitution. And it does exactly that. It tells you what they talked about. It has the conversations that they had during the Constitutional Convention. And I've already learned a couple of new things. If you remember last week, I said that slavery was mostly practiced in the South, even back then. Well, if you're talking about the time of the Constitutional Convention, yes. But earlier on, there were slaves in every state of the Union. By 1790, most of the northern states had abolished slavery. So what I said by pure dumb luck was true. At the time of the Constitutional Convention, it was mainly practiced in the South. I also learned I told you about the 3/5 rule. And I also learned that, remember, when we talked about Article 1, Section 1, it said both representatives and taxes would be apportioned by this formula. It turns out the North wanted every slave counted as a full person for purposes of taxation. And of course, the South wanted no slaves counted for purposes of taxation, because then they'd have to pay more taxes. So if both the North and the South wanted slaves counted as a full person and as no person, that pretty much puts to rest the lie that they were sitting around debating and determining what fraction of a human being a slave was. That was a lie made up to make them look like bad people. Okay, so as I learn other new things, I will bring them back to you. Okay, about this Make a Liberal Out of Me challenge. I issued it months ago. None of you have seen fit to take me up on it. So I've decided to do it myself. I'm now a liberal. And I'm not one of these liberals who sits around and talks about how much we care about people. I'm a liberal who gets off his ass and does something about it. Just like my comrades who are this week have been busy tearing down Confederate monuments to slavery. And obviously, every one of a monument to bigotry and racism. Robert E. Lee, leader of the Confederate Army, fought to perpetuate slavery. Of course he has to come down. Stonewall Jackson, another Confederate general. Of course he has to come down too. Jefferson Davis, there he is. Jefferson Davis. Uh-oh, we've got troubles.
Hey, Tim, looks like you lost your slides.
Yeah, here we go. Technical difficulty. Our first technical difficulty. Jefferson
There's
Davis.
Jefferson.
I'm sure there's a statue of him somewhere. Tear it down. George Washington, slave owner. Tear it down. After all, the entire U.S. is founded on slavery, right? Thomas Jefferson, slave owner. Tear him down. James Madison, slave owner. Tear him down. James Monroe, slave owner. Tear him down. Andrew Jackson, tear him down. And William Henry Harrison, slave owner. Tear him down. William Henry Harrison, slave owner, tear him down. John Tyler, slave owner, tear him down. James K. Polk, slave owner, tear him down. Zachary Tyler, Andrew Johnson, slave owners, tear him down. Ulysses S. Grant, slave owner, tear him down. And while we're at it, look at this 555-foot monument to a slave owner. It's an abomination rising out of our capital. Tear it down. And for you listening audiences, I'm talking about the Washington Monument. And how about this one down by the Potomac River? Another monument to a slave owner, the Jefferson Memorial. Tear it down. But you know, when it comes down to it, isn't this just a little miniature paper monument to a slave owner, the $1 bill? Burn it. And this, a $2 bill. Jefferson, slave owner, burn it. Andrew Jackson on the 20, slave owner, burn it. Burn them all. Of course, if you live in a community that prohibits burning, you can just send them all to me and I'll burn them for you. I promise. Okay. Martin Luther King. What? Whoa. Ooh.
Looks like you lost it again.
I lost it again.
What's going on?
It's technical difficulties. Okay.
Uh-oh.
We're going to get back into the rhythm. You can just kind of, in your mind.
It's there.
Yes. Okay. Now we need to catch back up to where we were. Our first technical difficulties.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Yeah, we'll get there. Okay.
Okay.
Going through the slides.
There's the money.
Going through the slides. Okay. Martin Luther King. Against gay marriage. Tear him down. As a matter of fact, any statue of anyone who ever said they were against gay marriage has got to be torn down. You didn't see that? Okay. So why do we want to tear...
Tim, who was that? For the radio listening audience, you gotta tell us.
That was Barry Soetoro. Oh, I mean Barack Obama.
It sure was.
Yeah. So why do we want to tear all these things down? Because we're liberals and we're so full of love and tolerance, and we want to end fascism. And you know what? Now that we're done with the monuments, let's burn some books. Book burning has a very noble history of all kinds of people who are building a better world just like us. Like this guy, Vladimir Lenin, and this guy, Mao Zedong, and this guy, Adolf Hitler. You know, the John Adams. Why do we want to burn books? I'll tell you. Because that's where the ideas are. We're going to have to go there eventually. If you want to burn, I mean, what are books but full of words, language, ideas? Language is ideas. We're going to have to go there sooner or later. John Adams, one of the so-called founding fathers who didn't own any slaves, said, ideas are dangerous things.
Hey, Tim.
Huh?
Didn't he say that ideas are stubborn things?
Whatever, okay? I mean, whoa.
That was hot in here, Tim.
That was exhausting. I had to come out of character because I don't think many of the people who are wanting to tear down monuments and erase history are going to ask you to ponder this. What is the next step? And while you're pondering that, I'd like to point out that all those statues I had up on the screen, those were like the first 12 of our presidents. Okay? Once you tear them all down, erase them from history, what are you going to replace them with? Are you just going to tell people that for the first 77 years we didn't have any presidents? Just something to think about. And here's the next thing to think about. What is the next step? Books are full of ideas. Those ideas go directly into people's brains where you cannot pull them out and where they become very stubborn things. So what's the next step? What has history shown to be the next step? When you're trying to ban ideas that are already in people's heads, what does history tell us? History tells us that the most expeditious and economical best step is a bullet in the brain. And before you go screaming that I'm totally off the deep end, let me remind you of the Russian Revolution, the Third Reich, the Cultural Revolution.
That's pretty scary. So these, Tim, for our radio listening audience, some slides you're showing are pretty sad.
Yes. I found slides that were much more horrifying than these. I mean, these are people being killed with guns, with a bullet in the brain. Let me tell you a little story about a guy named Larry Grathwohl. Larry was a FBI agent. He was given the job, an assignment of going underground and infiltrating the Weather Underground. Now, the Weather Underground, for those of you who are in school now and aren't learning anything about it, was a radical, militant, left-wing American organization. Their words, not mine. They were an offshoot of a widespread campus organization all across the country known as the Students for a Democratic Society. They conducted a campaign of bombings in the 1970s. With the aim of creating a clandestine revolutionary party and overthrowing the U.S. government. Sounds like a really great bunch of guys, doesn't it? They were going to have a revolution of their own. Now, these were not unintelligent people. So that opens up two possibilities. Either they were delusional, or they just might have pulled it off. Impossible! Impossible, you say. Well, really? You think the Tsar of Russia didn't have an army? This guy, Vladimir Lenin, again, he was not a military commander or a government leader. So there was, right up until the moment he was. So that opens up two more possibilities. There was a time when he was either delusional or he might have pulled it off. Larry Grathwohl did infiltrate the Weather Underground to the point where he was given the assignment of attending high-level meetings and then passing on the information from those meetings, carrying it out to the cells in the field. One of those meetings was chaired by the leaders of the Weather Underground, the people you see here, Bill Ayers and Bernadette Dorn. Now, if those names sound just vaguely familiar...
they do.
There's a reason, and I will tell it to you in just a minute here. During one meeting, they were discussing the revolution, and more importantly, discussing what was going to happen after the revolution. They assumed that Cuba and Russia and China would just move in and occupy different areas of the United States. But what was really on their mind was suppressing the counter-revolution, because they knew that we weren't going to go down without a fight. Their solution to suppressing the counter-revolution was to establish massive re-education camps in the Southwest. Does re-education camps sound a little familiar? It should, because they had them in China during the Cultural Revolution. They had them in Cambodia under the Khmer Rouge. They had them in Russia under Stalin. Well, Bill Ayers and Bernadette Dorn, they never really got their revolution. And Bill Ayers says even today he does not regret a thing. He wishes he'd done more. He did go on to host other meetings, including one in his living room in 2008. And during that meeting, it was a strategy meeting to launch the presidential campaign of Barack Obama. But Barack Obama didn't know who Bill Ayers was. He didn't know anything about his past. Didn't know that he was an unrepentant domestic terrorist who wished he'd planted more bombs and killed more people. I mean, I know it. Now you know it. But Barack Obama, the smartest man in the world, didn't have a clue. Now, I realize I am extrapolating here. Okay, things may never go that way. Of course, they have gone that way numerous times in numerous other countries on this planet, starting with the same crap people are wanting to do right here, right now. And you say, well, that could never happen here. Really? Do you think you're the first person who ever said that could never happen here? That never happens anywhere, right up until the moment it does. And the moment after it does, someone is going to turn to you and say, if only we had seen this coming. It doesn't start with that. It starts with this, with efforts to erase history and rewrite it. George Santayana, very famous statesman and diplomat. You may never have heard of him, but you have heard something that he said. He said, those who cannot learn from history are doomed to repeat it. So the people who want to start tearing down monuments, erasing the past, replacing it with something else, might want to consider something. People cannot learn from the past if they don't know it. And they cannot know it if you erase it. So this all begs one glaring question that I haven't heard anybody ask yet. Why now? These monuments have been around for decades, some of them for over 100 years. They've been standing right where they are for the entire lives of the people who want to tear them down now. So why now, in 2017, is it so urgent that we tear them all down and erase them from history? You know the answer. You know you do. It is one single, simple answer. It's because they don't like this man. This bigoted, racist, white supremacist, Donald Trump.
I don't think they like you or me either.
Yeah. The guy who said 2 days after the Charlottesville riot, as I said on Saturday, we condemn in the strongest possible terms this egregious display of hatred, bigotry, and violence. It has no place in America. As I have said many times before, no matter the color of our skin, we all live under the same laws. We all salute the same great flag, and we are all made by the same Almighty God. We must love each other, show affection for each other, and unite together in condemnation of hatred, bigotry, and violence. We must rediscover the bonds of love and loyalty that bring us together as Americans. If you're having a hard time drawing a connection there, you're not alone. I am too. And I'll bet you there might be a reason for that. So, that'll do it. Couple points I left out of there. I'll catch them next week. That seems to be a developing pattern here. But they want to burn books? I'll show you the books they want to burn. How about this one? Makers and Takers by Peter Schweitzer. Whoever the hell he is. Should have been called Takers and Makers. How about this book? The Making of America. The Substance and Meaning of the Constitution. Let's burn that one. This one? The Constitution itself, maybe not just yet. Definitely this one. I'm telling you, do not read this book, whatever you do. Actually, I think you should read this book.
Pretty good book, Tim.
It's a pretty good book, if I say so myself. I've read it several times.
As have I.
Yes. It's a page-turner. I mean, seriously.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. Several people have told me that, and several people have read it multiple times. The name of the book is Dangerous Subversive Heresies. And let me tell something here. I think for the first time since I started talking about this book, the title is ironic. Okay. It is available on Amazon.com. Well, that's going to wrap it up for episode 18. Kind of a short episode this week. We'll make it up later. I hope you come back for that show later. I hope you bring some friends. I hope you grow to be 100 million strong. But right now, I hope you have a good night.